one belief that you have to work really hard on ensuring people actually imbibe?
I would say more than the belief, I would say it is discipline or the mindset when it comes to money. When most people approach money as a topic of discussion, they fail to understand the whole objective and purpose and mindset behind it. And which is also being held with a lot of beliefs in their mind that A, maybe investments are not for me, they don't work. I rather keep it safe. I need to protect it, conserve it, which is a fine, which is good. But don't hold yourself back when it comes to exploring more avenues and options or discussing it with an advisor. It's the same ideology when you go to a doctor. You don't hold your thoughts and beliefs back. You don't hold your illnesses back. You splurt it out over there.
Comfortable?
Yeah, so far so good.
Looking good?
Thank you.
How are you feeling, Anshul? This is a unique situation I am putting all my friends and colleagues in. How does that feel?
Well, initially I was a little nervous, but morning when I woke up, I said, you know what? I'm going to talk about exactly what I do in my own life. And I don't think that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Let's just go with the flow. And I think I'll do fine.
So, I've known you for 10 years, almost to the date now.
Yes.
I met you just before I got married. But in the last 10 years, because I got to know you so naturally and so organically, I have never actually sought an introduction into your qualifications. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself with your qualifications, if you might, in terms of what is your experience and where did you get into finance from?
Sure. So I'll start with my qualifications first, and then I'll give you a little bit of background of how I stumbled into becoming an investment advisor, which was purely by accident. So I have done my B honors majors in finance from Northumbria University. After which I continued with my MBA, where I did my majors in finance. I then further took up my FRM, which is financial risk management, where I cleared my level one. After that, I started studying for my CFA. So I'm currently studying for my CFA. While we speak, I have also enrolled myself onto another personal finance course, which is called Qualified Personal Finance Professional. And I just happened to clear my level two yesterday. And now my level three will start. So I think education for me is never going to stop from a qualification perspective. Um, how I got into this business was never thought of or planned for, to be very honest. I always thought I'll do something extremely fancy in terms of the way it sounds, like research analyst or investment banker. It all sounded very fancy to us during our MBA days, and it is fancy because it requires a lot of technical knowledge. So I was in that trajectory, but at that point in time in my life, I was personally experiencing a lot of financial difficulty in my own life and within my family circle. So this sort of, without any conscious effort, did somewhere become an objective for me in my own life. And I very naturally, got myself into planning my own finances way back when I started my internship in college. And I just felt that I have a very natural flair when it comes to, let's say, planning your finances. And when I applied that to my work, it did show good results. And that is how I just took it up. So this is something that just came to me very, very naturally.
For those who don't know, you help plan my finances as well. And I trust you immensely when it comes to all of that. I think that natural flair has translated into trust. And I think you built that trust with a lot of people around me because I've then introduced you to so many people and everybody speaks of you in the same light. that we absolutely trust Anshul. He seems to know what he's doing, and I don't need to check in too many times to the point where I think you follow up with them more than they follow up with you. Right?
Thanks for this, Vidya.
Yeah. So today's discussion is all about finance and personal finance at that, something that is your forte. First question I have is a little bit personal. I want to understand what is your relationship with money?
Sure. So I think this is a very subjective answer because everyone looks at money very differently. It's a very personal answer because everyone has a lot of beliefs around what money is for him or her. I feel money to me is extremely important. It plays a very pivotal role in my own life. While money signifies a lot of security in terms of financial security, there's a belief that we've heard ever since we were kids that money can't buy you happiness. It is true in a way, but I would still beg to differ that I think money is also extremely critical in ensuring that you're mentally happy, right? So my relationship with money is where it is extremely important, and you have to nurture that part of your life very well because if you don't take charge of the money in your life, then you will not be able to take a charge of a lot of things, including your personal relationships. It will somewhere affect you in some way or the other.
So you deal with so many people when it comes to finances. What are some of the beliefs that hold people back, and what are some of the beliefs that have empowered people when it comes to money?
Uh, so our society, uh, I think by default is slightly conservative when it comes to money. And initially, when I interact with people, the way I like to interact with people is I want them to be very open about their money in terms of what they have currently or where they're lacking and what they plan to do with the money going forward in life. So, not everybody is willing to open up about it because they feel, my neighbors need not know how much I have or my family need not know what I have. I think that is what holds them back. But in my own experience, um, it is, I think, by far the most empowering conversation because people don't realize that we spend about 50 to 60% of our life trying to make that money and then we try to hide it from people, which is where I step in as an advisor. I said, if you're working so hard, you might as well be open about it and most importantly, learn to enjoy that money. Even if people have to see you enjoy that money, it's fine, it's your money.
And one belief that you have to work really hard on ensuring people actually imbibe.
I would say more than the belief, I would say it is discipline or the mindset when it comes to money, which is very important because when most people approach money as a topic of discussion, they fail to understand the whole objective and purpose and mindset behind it. And which is also being held with a lot of beliefs in their mind that A, maybe investments are not for me, they don't work. I rather keep it safe. I need to protect it, conserve it, which is a fine, which is good. But don't hold yourself back when it comes to exploring more avenues and options or discussing it with an advisor. It's the same ideology when you go to a doctor. You don't hold your thoughts and beliefs back. You don't hold your illnesses back. You splurt it out over there. Likewise out here. Just be free, go all out, discuss it out, and maybe that will help you understand more about your life and your money.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that you've discussed with everybody that I know is discipline. That you don't need to monitor every single fluctuation in the market.
No,
You don't need to do any of that. Discipline. Just do what you need to
absolutely.
do and keep doing what you need to do.
Absolutely. I think it's the single key important factor that can differentiate between a successful investor and somebody, let's say, who is just trying and continuously wanting to be an investor.
Hmm.
It's a very thin line, but I think that's the biggest divide that creates a wealthy investor and just an investor.
Hmm. So, speaking of purpose and objective, can you tell me in practice what this looks like, having a conversation around purpose and objective of your finances?
Right. So I'll give you my own personal example when it comes to this. I think investment in general, um, it it has to have a lot of meaning and purpose to it. Why are you and I working so hard today? What is the reason behind it? There has to be something. You might have not consciously thought of it, but there is something. Maybe, you know, I want to have a better retirement. I want to have a better house, a better car, or I want to give my family a better life. Whichever way you put it, there is some underlying meaning for you and I to even do what we are doing today, even though we love it, right? And with that comes a very important thing of purpose. Because if you don't know exactly why you're working so hard for this money and why you're putting that money in a certain instrument for a certain number of years, then what's the whole point of investing? If I'm putting 10,000 rupees in an SIP and I don't know what should I expect out of it after 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30 years, why am I even doing it? I'm just doing it without any meaning behind it. But if I add a meaning, let's say that I want to put in 10,000 today for the next 20 years, and if I do the math at 12% compounded return, that tells me that gives me, let's say, 1 crore, which is essentially the answer to that. Then I can say, okay, maybe after 20 years, when my son becomes a certain age, and if I can utilize that money for his higher education, right? There is a meaning behind it. Now, whether this 1 crore will be useful or not at that point in time is another subject altogether. But what I'm trying to say is that I have built in that purpose today. So, tomorrow, God forbid, if there is any unforeseen emergency in my family, and if I actually have to dig into pulling out my money, I will not touch that because psychologically, I have blocked myself saying, no, this is for my son Abir, and I'm not going to touch this no matter what. That is purpose. And that drives you, that gives you forward momentum. It
Sure.
makes you more conscious of your expenses also.
So, you brought up your son, and so I'm going to ask you, and feel free to turn me down. Like, do you have a personal story with personal finance, which is why you're so motivated by it?
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, that this profession came to me very naturally. It was never thought of. So, so I belong to a business family where I have seen my grandfather and father build a very, very successful business. And then there came a time where uh, the tables turned, things went complete topsy-turvy, and we were literally hand to mouth, Amina, to a point where I have been pulled up in the middle of my classroom in school saying that you have not paid your fees. You need to go and inform your parents to pay your fees. So these little things did stay in my mind, and they did affect me. You know, it would affect any child for that matter, or any human being for that matter. And a lot of things in my life have been governed because of money. So let's say, even friend circle for that matter. There were moments where I was very conscious being in a certain group, and I felt comfort in a certain group because maybe this group was living naturally, but their lifestyle, I could not match up to their lifestyle, and I felt odd in that group after some time. So it did somewhere affect me a lot that money does play a very important role in your life, psychologically as well. When I was in my job, this is again very personal, but I'm happy to share this. At that point in time, this I'm talking about 2014, 2015. I was drawing a salary of around 60,000 per month that time, and I was just married. And we got a gift voucher from Chroma from one of our family members, and me and my wife decided, let's go buy a fridge for the house. And the fridge costed 37,000. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is, again, these experiences and emotions stay very strong in the head. So I said, you know what? Hey, I have a 21,000 rupees voucher. The fridge is 37,000. So How about I take 16,000 on loan? Now, mind you, at that point in time, my salary was 60,000 per month, right? So I psychologically, I would feel 16,000 EMI for 6 months or 12 months should not be a problem. But because of my previous financial difficulties, credit card defaults, I have been disciplined with my investments and credit cards, but because of financial situations, I had come to a point where I have withdrawn money from my credit card and not being able to repay it back. The institutions at Chroma rejected me for a 16,000 rupees loan, saying, "Sir, your CIBIL score is not strong, is not good, and you are not eligible for a 16,000 rupees loan." So I think that was a turning point for me where I said, you know what, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to make some hard decisions about how I have managed my life, although not consciously, but situations got me to that point. And I said, I'm going to bring about a change. And I think that is where this entire purpose kicked into me 10, 11 years back. And that has changed my life and got me to where I am today. And it's just a continuous process for me. And I can thank God that I have come to a position today that I don't take loans for these kind of buys at all. The only loan that I have right now in my life is a home loan, which is a good loan because it's an appreciating asset. Everything else is straight down payment. And there are multiple such instances in my own personal life, which I see in a lot of people who I speak to on a daily basis, right? People from, let's say, salaried class, people who are in their business. Everybody has had some or the other experience with money, and I can completely relate to them. And I think which is why maybe it helps me build trust with them because they also understand where I have come from. And if I could do it, anybody can do it. That's how I look at it because the situation that I was in was not a pleasing one at all. The
Hmm.
very painful one.
Yeah. No, I've been in very similar situations many moons ago, and I always say this: money is far more expensive than it costs.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It is a very expensive thing to. Yeah, it. People don't realize. Uh, Poverty sounds really great in like retrospect because it's something that you overcame in its current situation. If you're facing poverty in your current situation, it's psychologically extremely draining. It puts pressure on relationships,
Absolutely.
it puts pressure on families, dreams have to be compromised, lifestyle has to be compromised, everything has to be compromised.
A lot goes into it. Like I said, my childhood, I have been a very conscious child. From, like I said, from going on field trips to going on school trips, everything had to be very, very carefully thought of. Even back in those days, it didn't cost too much. But as a child, I used to think, should I even go and approach and tell my parents there's a trip coming? Whether should I go or should I? Because my parents, being parents, they will say, you know what, go. But then what goes behind making the trip successful, I would not see it. But I had some inkling that it might be a little stressful for them and I might just maybe probably want to skip it.
Yeah, yeah. But I also think that makes you the kind of advisor that you are:
Um,
extremely authentic, vulnerable, very real,
yes.
very empathetic, that life has to be lived as well. You've never come
Yeah.
at.
So whether I'm a good advisor or not, I would want my clients to say that, but I can surely say that I genuinely empathize a lot with a lot of my investors. I understand their pain points. I understand where they're coming from. And this is not just a business for me. I can say this is purpose for me. That's how I would want to put it. If I get a kick helping somebody plan their own finances, I will even wake up at 4 in the morning and do whatever needs to be done to make sure that that person is out of the dump. And that's the purpose that I live my life with today.
Yeah. You're also one of those few advisors, and I've met a few, like when I was figuring out personal finance and I was trying to lay down the foundation. And I met a few, and everybody's like, ye karna hai. You have to do these 4 things. Do it. I was like, but why? How? I don't understand this. I don't understand the terminology. I don't understand why I'm doing it. I'm not even convinced I'm supposed to do it. Right. But you come at it from a very strong belief perspective. First, explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then doing it. Why this difference in approach, and why this focus on beliefs and mindset?